Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 8-game slate. We have a lot of injuries today for DraftKings and FanDuel. It's the same slate, so we have all the same games. So with that said, let's get into the injury report. Thank you guys, though, for liking, commenting, subscribing. Can you please smash that like and subscribe button? It helps the channel quite a bit. Really do appreciate it. Let's get into the injury report, though. Let's get the Bucks. Middleton is probable. Lopez is questionable, and Allen is questionable. If Lopez ends up being ruled out, then Portis is somebody you're going to have to take a look at. For the Magic, Carter Jr. is out, Suggs is out, Harris is out, Bamba is questionable, and Okeke is out. For the Clippers, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are both questionable, and Kennard is questionable. Powell is out. Obviously, if PG-13 and Kawhi are both ruled out, then that opens up a lot of everybody. For the Hornets, Ball is out, Hayward is out, and Smith Jr. is out. For the Thunder, Williams is out. For the Hawks, Collins and Hunter are both out. For the Celtics, Smart is questionable, and if he doesn't play, then that gives you should definitely take a look at Brogdon, and Horford is doubtful. For the Raptors, Achua and Porter are both out. For the 76ers, Harden is questionable, and Nang is questionable, and Maxey is out. If Harden ends up playing, that's going to hurt the other guards on the team. For the Rockets, Tate is out. For the Heat, Butler is questionable, Hero is probable, Struss is probable, Vincent is questionable, and Dedmon is questionable. For Butler, if he ends up being ruled out, then that would give Lowry some upside as well as Hero. For Grizzlies, Adams is questionable, Bane is out, and Jackson Jr. is doubtful. If Adams and Jackson Jr. both don't play, that makes Clark Berry playable today. For the Suns, Chris Paul is questionable, Craig is questionable, and Cam Johnson is out. For the Mavs, Wood is questionable. For the Pacers, Halliburton is out, McConnell is questionable. And for the Warriors, Wiggins is questionable, and Poole is questionable. So we got a lot of injuries. We got several questionable tags, which definitely going to have to, take closer time. So let's get into the players I do like, though. Here on DraftKings, you'll see that I have Nembhard, Thompson, Johnson, and Capella in my lineup already. These are my core plays today so far, at least as we sit with injuries. For Nembhard, with Halliburton out, he's just going to have all the minutes he can handle, and he'll be starting. He should be starting, so we double-check to make sure he ends up starting. But if he does, he's a great play. He's gotten 37 or more fantasy points the last 2 games. I look for that to continue. And he's even been pretty solid all season, just hasn't played many minutes. So I think he's a great play on the slate. He's probably my top-tier play overall. Then we'll look at Klay Thompson here. His price point has actually dropped a little bit, which is nice. And even though he is streaky, he's got a nice plus matchup here against Indiana, especially without Halliburton. The only real risk here is a blowout potential. If the Warriors get ahead too early, he could potentially not play as long. But the thing, because Indiana is the #1 team and giving up points, but I actually expect the game to be high scoring for both teams, so I think that he'll have a pretty solid chance of having a 35 to 45 fantasy point game. Then we're going to look at Jalen Johnson. Now he's kind of a wild card here. He's only played 3 games over 20 minutes this season. His last game was a start where you see he got 32 fantasy points. The other 2 games that he started, he both got over 20 fantasy points, or where he played over 20 minutes. So he's definitely a viable play. If he's starting, then he's somebody that's a must play, but you're going to have to double check that he ends up starting as well. And then Clint Capella, with all the injuries to the Hawks, he's going to be able to get more minutes and more usage at the center position. He's been playing really well lately. He hasn't had too many bad games. He usually pretty inconsistent because him and Collins kind of do back and forth, but in this particular game without Collins, he's going to have a lot of upside as a result. So that's who I like as my core plays. Let's go ahead and look at the other players I do like here. So Buddy Hield for Indiana. Now he's been extremely inconsistent this season. Even in games with Halliburton out, he's been streaky at best. But he does have a lot of upside at his price point, and his price point is down. So I think he's viable. He's somebody to consider, but he's still a little bit riskier than some other options. Tim Hardaway Jr. is in the exact same boat. He's just having the last few games where he started. Well, he's played really well, but he's a very streaky player, and he's very scoring dependent a lot of times for fantasy points. And so, but his price has actually come down some, which is nice. From the early in the season, I should say. But still, he's very streaky, and this is a tough matchup. But he's still viable on the slate because he has upside. Trae Young for Atlanta is an interesting spot here. He's in a good situation for the Hawks. He didn't play last game though, so we do have to make sure that he's feeling top notch for this one. But he should be good to go here, and his price point is pretty fair, a little bit below 10,000, which is always nice for him. And he definitely has 55 fantasy point upside in this matchup. Then we'll look at Tyler Hero. Now I wasn't going to include him, even because he is probable, but his price point is a little bit too cheap, and since he's played the last few games, he's been playing pretty solid, and I think he's got some good upside in this matchup, especially if other guys remain out. And then for the forwards, we're going to look at Draymond Green. For Golden State, he's been playing up and down every game pretty much, but look at this, like, this is the game where he'll play up, and so I like him in this one. Again, especially against a fast-paced team like Indiana, where scoring is going to be easy for the Warriors, as if it's hard for them ever. But he's going to have more upside in this matchup because of the lack of defense that Indiana plays. PJ Washington, he's a very streaky player, so you have to keep that into consideration. But he's played pretty good lately with the guys out. Obviously, he does have some big-time upside occasionally, but I do stress that he is a very streaky player. Siakam looks like a pretty tough play today, but he's been ramping up his minutes game to game, coming back from his injuries, and he seems like he's playing at his normal self now. He's had 20 regular points and over 20 points the last 3 games, and he just got he nearly got a triple double last game out in 31 minutes. Obviously, I want him to get over 35 minutes in this game. And get closer to 40 minutes like he played early in the season. And he'll need to do that probably to really pay off here. But this is a matchup where it should be close and it should be a good game. Even though it's a tough matchup defensively, if Horford doesn't play, that gives him a little bit more upside as well. Then we'll look at Dylan Brooks here from Memphis. Now, he's been pretty streaky lately, but he's not somebody that's going to kill your team usually, especially with the injuries to the Grizzlies. The only real concern that I have is this is a back-to-back situation, and sometimes the Grizzlies don't do as well. Not only that, they're playing Miami, so that's a tough matchup. Miami is one of the tougher defensive teams, regardless of the injuries. They just play a slower style of ball, and so you combine the fact that the Grizzlies don't always play as good on back-to-backs with playing against a team that's really good defensively. He's kind of a secondary extreme measure. Like if you have utility left and you have exactly $6,200, he's probably the guy that I would fit in there. But he's kind of a last resort type of situation. For centers, we're going to look at I already talked about Capella. So last guy I'm going to talk about is Plumlee here for the Hornets. He's been pretty streaky the last 5 games, but he has upside at this price point, and he's been playing pretty consistent most of the season. His price is still pretty good. So he is kind of in a timeshare with Nick Richards, though, but he's been playing solid, and his minutes remain similar game to game. Let's go ahead and get into the FanDuel situation that we have here. We're going to start with point guards. There's a lot more good guards on the slate on FanDuel than there are any other position for point guard and shooting guard. Small forward, power forward, and center are kind of weak. The pricing on FanDuel is worse, though, as well than it is on DraftKings, so do keep that in mind. Terry Rozier looks like a pretty solid play today over here on FanDuel. He's played really solid this season. Of course, FanDuel's breaking. It won't show me his game log. But he's been pretty good lately, especially as the main guard since everybody else is out. Though his price is up, he has a plus matchup here, especially if Paul George and Kawhi Leonard don't play. John Morant, he's a little bit risky today. I think all their game records are broken, so unfortunately I won't be able to show you that. But anyway, John Morant looks like a solid play today, though it is a back-to-back, so you do have to keep that into consideration. Sometimes the Grizzlies don't play as well on back-to-backs, and this is a tough matchup against Miami, but he's been playing really solid most of the season, so I do think he's viable on the slate. Luka Doncic looks like he's in another situation to have a really big game here against Phoenix. Obviously a tough defensive matchup, but he's pretty much matchup proof. He's played great all season long, and I expect him to continue that. And then Trae Young for Atlanta. He's probably one of my close to favorite plays on the slate. I don't even know why I keep checking the game log. He should be good to go here against against the Thunder, and he should have a lot of upside in this matchup. Then we'll look at shooting guard, and we're going to look at Nimhard, who's probably my favorite play at shooting guard on the slate. Though his price point is high here, he's been starting with Halliburton out, and he should be in great spot in order to have a 30-plus fantasy point game. Though he's not as much of a lock here on FanDuel as he is on DraftKings, where he's much cheaper. Then Dylan Brooks is in a tough matchup, but he has upside with some of the injuries to Memphis, and I expect him to have a pretty good game. Then we'll look at Klay Thompson for Golden State, who's in a nice plus matchup against Indiana, and I expect him to have a big game in this one. As a result of that plus matchup, remind you that Indiana is one of the worst defensive teams in the country right now. Then we'll look at Jalen Johnson for Atlanta. His price point is a little bit better on DraftKings than FanDuel, but he has upside. He's been starting the last game, and if he starts again with the injuries to Hunter and Collins, then he'll be a guy that I definitely lock in and load today. Then Buddy Hield, he's been very inconsistent lately, but he's been good most of the season, and his price point is fair. With Halliburton, he should get some more opportunity, but again, he has been streaky lately, so do keep that in consideration. Draymond Green looks like he's in a great spot today for Golden State against Indiana. He is streaky, though, so you do keep that in mind, but he has upside in the matchup. Aldama for Memphis looks like he's in a plus matchup here, despite the fact that they have a tough matchup. If he ends up starting, he'll be a viable option on the slate, but he's not super ideal because of his price. I do like Kevin Looney. He's been playing extremely well lately. However, he is streaky, and he tends to be the fifth guy on the team to get, attempts. He's going to have to grab rebounds in order to get some putback baskets to really pay off. But overall, he's got a nice situation here against Indiana, so he should have some upside. And then Clint Capella, he should have a lot more usage and stuff and shots with all the injuries to the Hawks. And he's played really well lately, especially with Collins out. He's been a little bit more consistent, and that's what we like to see. And then Mason Plumlee finally for the Clippers. He's been pretty consistent this season. He's had a couple rough games recently, but overall his price is in a good spot where we can enjoy him and take care. He won't kill us likely on the slate. So with that said, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Check out the description below for Discord and things like that, and have a nice day, guys.